I'm not neutral, not when it comes to her. With those words, Keen Yiran didn't just step down as chairman. He walked straight into the fire, holding Zhu Meilan's name like a vow. What happens when a man built on power chooses love over legacy? When a woman once shattered begins to write her story again, in ink, in scars, in truth? And when the shadows that tried to erase her come back. But this time, she's not alone. Welcome to the Velvet Story video, where emotion meets edge. You are listening to Beneath the Mask. Chapters 31 to 34. The warmth I forgot, the places that still hurt. The space between our hands, and where the cracks begin to heal. Settle in. This isn't just an audiobook. It's an awakening. Chapter 31, The Warmth I Forgot. Keen Corporation Executive Boardroom, 10:18 a.m. The table was long, polished, intimidating, and the air was thick with tension. Keen Yiran sat at the head, composed, silent. Across from him, the board's vice chairman, Mr. Liao, stood. You've compromised the company's image, Mr. Keen, he said sharply. This isn't about your personal life. It's about the brand. Our stock fell 3 points overnight. Yiran didn't flinch. It will recover. Not if you're seen protecting a woman at the center of a scandal. Yiran's eyes narrowed. You mean the woman you're all afraid of, because she didn't fold? Whispers passed around the table. Mr. Liao chuckled bitterly. She's a risk. She's more stable than half the men in this room. Yiran shot back. And more loyal. A pause. Then Mr. Liao placed a document in front of him. Step back. Issue a public statement that you have no involvement with Zhu Meilan beyond business. Reaffirm your neutrality, and this board remains yours. Yiran looked at the paper. Then tore it in half. I'm not neutral, he said, rising. Not when it comes to her. A beat of silence. Effective immediately, he added, I'm stepping down as interim chairman. Gasps. You would give up your position? For her? No, Yiran said, eyes blazing. For myself. For truth. For something that still means something in a world built on lies. He walked out without another word. And for the first time in years, he felt free. Zhu family apartment later that evening. The candles flickered softly around the modest living room. A tiny cake sat on the table. Today was Zhu Meilan's birthday. She hadn't told anyone, not even him. But when she opened the door, she found Yiran standing there. Soaked in the warm light. Holding a cake box. And a single white camellia. Her eyes widened. You don't hide your birthdays from me anymore, he said gently. She looked away, suddenly unsure. I didn't think it mattered. It does. He stepped inside quietly, placing the box on the table. Her mother rested on the couch nearby, a soft monitor beeping. Her brother was asleep in the next room. And in the middle of all that sorrow, he brought light. Happy birthday, he said. She stared at him, and for the first time in months, tears welled up for a reason that wasn't pain. I didn't think anyone would remember. He shrugged. I didn't forget. Simple celebration. They sat on the old couch, knees nearly touching. He handed her a small box. Inside was a pen. Elegant. Silver. She blinked. A pen? I know it's not much, he said. But I had it engraved. She looked closer. There, in delicate cursive, were 3 words. Write your name. Her eyes lifted to his. I figured, he said softly, after all they tried to take from you, it's time you started writing your story again. Your way. Her throat burned. Her heart did something strange. It opened. Just a little. Late night walk outside the apartment. Rain began to fall again, light and misty. They walked slowly, no umbrella between them. His coat over her shoulders. She looked up. Why are you doing this? She asked. He didn't answer at first. Then, because I fell. She stopped walking. What? I fell for you, he said, without bravado. No games. No pretense. He looked at her like she was the only steady thing left in his universe. And not because of that night. Not because of guilt. But because, every time I see you stand again, I want to kneel. Her breath caught. You shouldn't. I want to, he said. Even if you don't choose me in the end. I want to love you in a way no one else did. She stared at him, rain dripping from her lashes. And for a moment, she forgot all the lies. All the loss. All the hurt. There was just him. And her. And the softness that had waited so long to bloom. Somewhere in the shadows, Mr. Shen clenched the newspaper with fury. Qin Yiran sacrificed everything for her? Another voice chuckled. Love is weakness. No, Shen hissed. Her love is dangerous. He stood, walking to the window. It's time we remind her who destroyed her in the first place. A pause. And this time, she won't get back up. End of chapter 31. Chapter 32, The Places That Still Hurt. Zhu family apartment early morning. Zhu Milam stood by the window, watching as dawn painted the sky in shades of coral and pale gold. It had been 2 days since Qin Yiran showed up on her birthday. 2 days since someone had stayed, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The engraved pen sat on her nightstand. She ran her fingers over the words again. Write your name. Her lips curved into something soft. I will, she whispered to herself. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of her own name. Small Tech Forum downtown, 11:45 a.m. It wasn't a press conference. There were no flashing cameras or microphones. Just a modest room with young entrepreneurs and a whiteboard. But Milam stood at the center. Confidence. Grounded. Dressed in a crisp white blouse and high-waist slate grey pants, hair pinned back in a neat twist. She didn't need a surname today. Just her mind. Just her vision. She presented quietly, a concept that merged AI care services with accessible hardware for rehabilitation, something inspired by her brother. The room listened, not because of her name, but because of her. She didn't see Qin Yiran at the back of the room. But he was there, arms crossed, eyes unreadable, mouth slightly curved. And when she finished, applause followed. Small, but real. She exhaled, quietly victorious. Yiran's eyes lingered. There she is. Evening Qin Yiran's apartment. The city lights shimmered below like a sea of broken stars. Milam entered quietly, setting down a plastic bag on the counter. You don't have to keep feeding me, he teased from the couch. You stepped down from a billion-dollar position, she replied, smirking. The least I can do is make you soup. He watched her move through his space like it was hers, not out of claim, but out of comfort. That comfort was new and dangerous. Did it hurt? She asked suddenly, glancing over her shoulder. What? Stepping down. He hesitated. Then, no. She didn't believe him, but she respected the silence he wrapped around his pain. Still, her gaze dropped to his hand, the one he'd injured years ago in a construction site collapse, something he rarely mentioned. She walked over, kneeling in front of him. Gently, she took his hand and pressed a warm towel against his wrist. You still get pain there, don't you? She asked softly. He stared at her. How did you? I noticed, she whispered. Yiran swallowed, and something inside him cracked. No one had ever noticed without being told. No one had ever touched him with care that wasn't transactional. The unspoken things. The towel fell away. Her fingers lingered. He caught her wrist. Not tight. Just there. I don't know what this is, he said softly. But I'm not pretending anymore. Her breath stilled. I wake up thinking about you. I watch every step you take like I'm afraid someone's going to steal your shadow. She blinked. Words caught in her throat. And I know you're still healing, he added, voice rough, but if there's even a small space in your world for me. There is, she said. Quiet. Sure. His eyes widened. Then I softened. I'm scared, she admitted, voice trembling. Of wanting something again. Of being wrong. I'll let you be scared, he whispered. But I won't let you be alone. She looked at him, and for once, didn't look away. That night balcony. They sat side by side. His jacket around her shoulders again. No words. No drama. Just the stars above and the thrum of hearts healing beside each other. I used to think love was noise, she said quietly. Big, loud, fireworks. And now, she looked at him. Now I think, it's quiet after the storm. The part where you're allowed to breathe. He turned toward her and smiled. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city, in a sleek black office, Shen Ha threw a glass against the wall. She's rising again. His assistant looked up warily. And she's not alone, Shen added darkly. We still have the security footage from that night, the assistant said carefully. But the timestamp's damaged. Fix it. But if we release it, I don't want to ruin her. Shen's eyes narrowed. I want her to choose destruction. A slow, poisonous smile curved his lips. And I want to watch her fall, while he watches helplessly. End of chapter 32. Chapter 33, The Space Between Our Hands. Venue, South Pearl Business Summit 9:30 a.m. Meelam adjusted the collar of her pale blue blazer in the restroom mirror, lips pressed tightly together. The South Pearl Summit wasn't just another event. It was her father's legacy. The Zoo Corporation had once co-sponsored this annual forum, before the accident. Before the betrayal. Before her name became tabloid poison. And yet, her name had found its way back onto the guest list. Unofficially, of course, she'd received a private invitation 3 days ago, with no company stamp. No sender, just a note. Come and remind them who you were before they tried to erase you. She had a feeling who sent it. And she wasn't wrong. The main floor 11:00 a.m. The room was alive with whispers when she walked in. Some faces turned with disdain, others with surprise. But she didn't flinch. She walked like someone who still belonged, even if her chair had been stolen. In the crowd, Keen Yiran watched her in silence. Standing on the opposite end of the ballroom, surrounded by media and investors. She didn't see him yet. But he saw her, saw the strength in her spine, the quiet dignity in her step. The faint pink on her cheeks betrays the nerves beneath her calm exterior. Then, like a thread pulling them across the room, their eyes met. And time slowed. He didn't smile, but something in his gaze warmed. She didn't wave, but something in her expression softened. The space between them pulsed, taut, invisible, real. Lounge area later. Meelam leaned against a marble counter, nursing an untouched coffee. Her mind was racing. I didn't expect to see you here, a voice said from behind her. She turned. A woman stood there, late 20s, sharp, elegant, Keen Yiran's personal legal advisor, and yeah, I didn't expect to see you talking to the press about AI rehabilitation startups, Meelam replied smoothly. And Ya tilted her head, smile tight. I'm just surprised you're back. Thought you were taking time off. Recovery isn't the same as vanishing. And Ya murmured. You look well, but don't get too comfortable. The wolves haven't forgotten your scent. Meelam stepped closer, eyes cool. Then I hope they've grown better teeth. Because I don't bite anymore, I devour. And Ya blinked, taken aback for a beat, then gave a polite, brittle smile and walked away. From a distance, Yiran had been watching. He didn't step in, but later, he sent her a message. You were the sharpest blade in the room. Thank you for reminding them. She smiled at her phone. For once, it felt like she was doing the protecting. Keen Yiran's penthouse midnight. The day had drained her. Meelam curled up on the couch beneath a blanket, her laptop open but untouched. She had dozed off. Yiran had just come in from a meeting, coat draped on the chair, silence wrapping around them. He watched her sleep for a moment. Not in a way that crossed lines. But in the way someone watches a star from a distance, afraid to touch, in case it burns out. She stirred lightly, frowned, then, reached. Her hand slid across the cushion, as if searching for something in sleep. He didn't move, but her fingers brushed his hand, and even in slumber, she curled around it. Yiran froze. The warmth of her palm. The fragile trust of that simple, unconscious motion. She trusted him enough to sleep. He let her hold on. And for the first time in years, someone held him back. Elsewhere, Shen Han's private study. The USB stick flickered. Timestamp, corrupted. Audio, damaged. But the shadowy figures on the tape still moved. Still confirmed what Shen wanted. I can twist this, he muttered. I can make the world believe what I want them to see. Sir, his assistant said cautiously, what if she finds out it was you? Shen smiled slowly. Then she'll finally give me what I want, all her rage, all her fury. He leaned closer to the screen. And I'll twist it into chains. In the quiet that follows, Milam stirred again, blinking awake to the dim light of the city outside. Her eyes found Yiran. Their hands were still linked. He didn't pull away, neither did she. You are still here, she whispered, her voice sleep-soft. I'm not leaving, he replied. A pause. Not unless you ask me to. She looked at their hands. And smiled. Not with her lips, but with her heart. End of chapter 33. Chapter 34, where the cracks begin to heal. Sunday morning lakeside retreat. The car ride had been mostly quiet. Milam glanced out the window, unsure why she let Yiran whisk her away for a short trip outside the city. Is this a date? She had asked casually. No, he had replied, equally casual. But he didn't say it like he meant it. Now, with the lake shimmering under soft grey skies and the scent of pine all around them, Milam was beginning to understand. It wasn't a date, but it was something. At the cabin noon. The place wasn't flashy. A modest wooden cabin Yiran had owned for years but rarely visited. Bookshelves filled with old novels, a small fireplace, an overgrown garden out back. It's quiet here, Milam murmured, sliding her fingertips over the windowsill. Too quiet? He asked. No, she smiled. Just peaceful. She turned toward him. You come here often? Not since my mother died. Her smile faded. I didn't know, she said gently. She liked it here, he added after a pause. Said the trees made her feel less watched. That the city always felt like glass, breakable. Here, it felt like roots. Milam looked out the window again. I can see that. There was a silence, not heavy, just full. Then she spoke, voice low. I haven't felt peace in a long time. Outside later. They had lunch on a wooden bench beneath the trees, nothing fancy, just rice, fish, and soup she insisted on preparing. You never let anyone take care of you, he noted. Because no one ever stayed long enough to try. She didn't mean it as a confession, but it landed like one. Yiran didn't press. Instead, he reached up and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so soft, so instinctive, that she almost flinched. You don't have to apologize for surviving, Milam. Her throat tightened. She didn't speak for a long time. But she didn't look away either. Sudden rain late afternoon. The rain came unexpectedly. They were caught halfway through a walk around the lake when the first drops hit. Milam shrieked as the cold water soaked her blouse. Yiran laughed, not a smirk, not a mocking sound, but a rare, unguarded laugh that made her stop in her tracks. What? She asked, breathless. You're soaked, he said, still chuckling. And you look like you want to yell at the clouds. I do, she huffed, then laughed too. They ran back toward the cabin, drenched and laughing. Inside, she wrapped herself in an oversized sweater he lent her. Her damp hair clinging to her cheeks. He brought her a towel. She took it. Their fingers brushed. For a moment, just a heartbeat, everything felt still. I never get to see you like this, he said quietly. She blinked. Like what? Enamored. She didn't answer, but her gaze lingered on his longer than it had before. Meanwhile, in the city, Shenha leaned back in his chair as an email loaded. Attached was a photo, a blurry frame from a partially recovered video, two figures tangled in bed sheets. Faces obscured, timestamp smudged. It was enough to start a rumor. Not enough to prove the truth. But then came the voice clip. Damaged. Distorted. But one sentence crackled clearly through. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. He smiled slowly. It wasn't just about destruction anymore. It was about control. Back at the cabin nightfall. Milam sat by the fireplace, curled into herself, reading one of the old books. Yiran entered, setting down 2 cups of tea. She took hers silently. Then, without looking up from her book, she said, "Did you always know how to take care of people?" He looked at her. "No." "Then how did you learn?" He sipped his tea. "I learned by watching people I loved suffer." Meelam looked up. Their eyes met. She set the book aside. "Can I ask you something?" He nodded. "That night, the one I don't remember clearly. Was it really a mistake?" Yiran's jaw tightened. "I thought it was a setup," he admitted. "At first, I was drugged. My memory is foggy. I remember a voice, softness, someone who didn't feel like a stranger." Her breath hitched. "And now," he said slowly, "I think maybe it wasn't a mistake at all. Maybe it was the first moment I started to want again." She stared at him, eyes glistening. He leaned forward. Not enough to kiss, but enough for her to feel his warmth. "You don't have to love me back, Meelam," he whispered. "Just don't shut the door before you even look." And with that, he stood. Left her with her racing heart. And a space between them that was now charged with something she could no longer ignore. End of chapter 34. She didn't flinch when the rain came. She laughed. She let him see her, enamored, undone, and maybe, starting to believe again. But far from the lake, a shadow sharpens. Whispers twist into threats. And a voice from the past is about to poison the future. This was Beneath the Mask, chapters 31 to 34, only on the Velvet Story video. If you felt the weight of every unsaid word, every quiet confession, then you already know. The storm hasn't passed. It's just changing shape. Sparkles, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us next time as secrets break the surface. And love decides whether it will rise or burn. Until then, keep listening, keep feeling, and never stop writing your name.